Spiritfall released in early access last week, and I've been having fun playing around with it. It's a great starting point, a solid foundation, but it needs some more content. So let's get into it. Spiritfall is a platformer fighting game roguelite that also draws a lot of inspiration from Hades. Think of core gameplay similar to Smash or Brawlhalla with Hades-style's roguelite elements. As you enter each room, there'll be some enemies present already, and more enemies will spawn as you clear them out. You have a standard attack, a more powerful, chargeable attack called the launcher, and a ranged attack you can use as well on a cooldown. Along the way, you'll find upgrades that increase the damage of these abilities and give them other cool effects. These upgrades can also give you passive buffs, a special active ability, and upgrades to your dash. Each room or level itself is pretty small and is over pretty quickly, and each area culminates in a final boss fight with unique mechanics. Like other platform fighters, there's a lot of knocking enemies around and being knocked around yourself. This is kind of a double-edged sword. It's incredibly fun to knock enemies around, stack them out so they can't attack you back, and just combo enemies in general. The brawling gameplay can be incredibly fun. Like most platform fighters, you have a variety of different attacks that you can do, and your moveset changes depending on if you're in the air, if you're doing a side attack or down attack, things like that. At the same time, when you're first learning, it's pretty easy to be comboed out yourself. If you're experienced with platform fighters, you'll probably get over this initial learning curve pretty quickly. It's not that hard, all things considered, but some of the later areas have so many enemies that spawn at once that they can become really chaotic and really cluttered, meaning you'll take some hits that you just don't see coming. There are also some enemies and bosses that have a stagger meter, meaning you have to do enough attacks that make the enemy move in order to break their stagger bar. Once that bar is broken, you can send these enemies flying as well, but before that, they'll be unmovable and uninterruptible. Now let's talk about the build crafting for a bit, and within run upgrades, which are mainly built around 6 spirits, or gods, that give you different boons or upgrades. Each spirit has 1 or 2 main themes that their abilities and upgrades are based around. For example, the Fox Spirit upgrades your attacks to make them apply the wound condition, which increases your critical strike chance. Another spirit, the Antler Spirit, focuses on giving you poise, which makes you immune to knockbacks and interruptions. And that same spirit also focuses on healing and healing interactions. If you've ever played Hades, the build crafting in Spiritfall feels directly inspired from that game. Like Hades, your basic attack, launcher attack, and dash, for example, can only have 1 upgrade each. You can have as many stacking passive effects as you want, but you can only get 1 modifier for each of your main abilities. In addition to these spirit-based boons or upgrades, there are a couple other small build crafting elements, namely in the form of relics you can find, and runes you can add to your weapons, both of which are other sources of passive upgrades that generally provide some form of simple buff, like increased basic attack damage, increased health, things like that. Spiritfall has overall decent build crafting. Each spirit has a lot of fun combos within themselves. For example, the lightning focused spirit allows you to stack a buff on yourself and then create a damaging area of effect around you, stun enemies, etc., etc. With the right build, you can feel incredibly powerful and smash your way through areas with ease and a lot of speed. It's really satisfying to get one of those builds going. But the build crafting is also limited by that spirit system. Each spirit has pretty self-contained combos and synergies. Most spirits have some general buffs, like increased critical strike chance for all of your attacks, but only a handful of spirits actually truly combo and synergize with the others. This overall structure made the build crafting feel more rigid, and it made the best strategy feel like stack as many upgrades as possible from 1 singular spirit in order to get the most powerful synergies. You weren't really rewarded for getting a variety of spirits. As a brief aside, I also played this game on Steam Deck for a while, and it ran very smoothly. This game is definitely a controller game for me anyways, so playing it on Steam Deck felt very natural and like a good fit for it. Now let's talk about the progression that exists so far in Spiritfall. There are 3 cross-run currencies, each of which are used by different merchants. The first currency are weapon runes. You use these to unlock the 3 main weapons in the game, as well as upgrades for those weapons. These upgrades are mostly pure buffs, but some of these upgrades are more situational buffs. None of these weapon upgrades add increased playstyle variety, but I do like the variety that's already there with the 3 different weapons. You have the hammer, which allows you to do hard-hitting attacks that knock enemies back further. You have a set of fists, which are great for attack spamming and comboing out enemies that way. And you have the bow, which is my least favorite, but it's great for range damage. The second currency are scrolls. These allow you to unlock things that change the regions you explore during your runs. Mainly, these add new types of rooms, like a healing room for example, as a possibility for you to find along your runs. Finally, you have dormant embers, which allow you to upgrade the spirit shrine. This is probably the most important progression system and the largest in the game so far. Shrine upgrades are organized based on the different spirits and follow a basic skill tree structure, where some upgrades must be bought first in order to access and later unlock future upgrades. Some of these upgrades are strict buffs, like ones that add more health or make you deal more damage in certain circumstances. Other upgrades add new mechanics to the game. For example, one upgrade lets you wave dash, and another upgrade lets you bounce on stunned enemies. In total, the game already has a solid foundation for a progression system. It has a nice mix of upgrades that add new mechanics, and a large amount of upgrades that add vertical progression or cross-run upgrades to the game that make you more powerful. I did max out all these progression systems pretty quickly though. I should note also that there isn't any form of difficulty levels or anything like that. Spiritfall just released into early access, so it's not that surprising that there are no difficulty levels yet. That's usually added later. But it does mean that once you can clear the game consistently, you can't give yourself that increased challenge in any way, besides trying out different weapons or self-imposed challenges like that. And on that note, let's talk more about Spiritfall's shortcomings. What more do I want to see from this game? The main thing I want to see from Spiritfall is just more content. I cleared the game for the first time in a couple hours, and I completed all the progression, got all the unlocks, not that long after that. This game is clearly set up for another area, or at a minimum, another boss. I think that extra content is definitely needed to keep this game fresh for longer. In the same ballpark, I want this game to have some form of difficulty mode or levels to climb. I don't have a strong opinion on how it's implemented, but because the core combat is so masterable and I've already beaten the game several times, there just needs to be some extra challenge to keep me engaged. Additionally, while the 3 existing weapons are good, there is definitely room for more playstyle variety. There are 2 more weapons that are teased, but even different variants or options for existing weapons could go a long way to add more variety. This game is already heavily inspired by Hades, so something like those weapon aspects in Hades could be a great option here. While all the weapon upgrades right now are also strict buffs, you could make some of those upgrades have trade-offs or require choices, add some variety that way as well. The other main thing I want to see added to Spiritfall is more potential for cross-spirit synergies and combos. As I stated earlier, right now, it feels like your build is siloed into one spirit or god if you want those best effects, and it's not really rewarding to try to combo different gods' upgrades because their upgrades just don't interact in a meaningful way. There are a couple different ways to improve this. Again, thinking back to Hades, because this game is so inspired by Hades, there could be some form of duo spirit boons. They require both spirits and allow for unique effects. For example, the Fox and the Phoenix could have a combo upgrade, where you apply a stack of burning when you do a critical hit. And even outside of that explicit comboing, there is a lot of room for passive upgrades, relics, and weapon upgrades or runes that just allow for some more fun and creative build crafting if they just interacted more, and that would give this game some more life. This could be as straightforward as making boons or upgrades interact with enemies that have a status effect in general as opposed to one specific status effect. There's just a lot of flexibility there to make some synergies more possible. On a more minor note, I think there needs to be some consideration with the enemies and their potential frustration. I wouldn't say this game was ever super frustrating, but there definitely are some annoying enemies that can deal a lot of damage to you and that are hard to react to, especially when the levels get super cluttered with a bunch of different enemies spawning at once. Some of this is just a skill issue, but there are also enemies that can attack or retarget so fast that it makes them annoying to deal with in large groups. Finally, I'll just say I like the basic story and the world building that's present so far. I would love to see the developers expand onto this. It could be something really cool, but you know, it's a roguelite, so my expectations for that can only be so high. As a whole, I don't think any of these things point to massive flaws and the core gameplay is Spiritfall. But I do think they all point to a need, or at a minimum, a desire for Spiritfall to just do more and allow for some more creative build crafting. So what's my verdict on Spiritfall? As it stands right now, Spiritfall has a solid foundation. The combat is fun, it feels nice to try out different builds, and the variety of upgrades is nice. It has a good start of a progression system, and the different weapons allow you to try out different playstyles. So in that sense, Spiritfall is in a great early access place. But the game definitely needs more content. It would benefit from more creative build crafting and better synergy flexibility. I got my first clear in a couple hours, but there are no difficulty modes or levels to climb. And even the progression system that exists was fully maxed out by me in 7 or so hours. These all greatly limited how much I wanted to play the game so far. I wouldn't say that Spiritfall is massively held back by anything it does poorly, but rather it's held back by needing to do more. So I would recommend putting Spiritfall on your radar and picking it up if you're interested. The core gameplay is solid as it is right now, but because of that limited content, which made my playtime with this game a lot lower, I don't think you need to rush to pick up this game. You can wait and see how it progresses. Huge shout out to all of our channel members for helping support the channel. Your support is greatly appreciated. Please like this video to help me out in the algorithm, and thanks for watching.